You are about to view a factual representation of our legal battles. There is no commentary here, just unfiltered, unedited, and raw footage. We are taking you straight to the front lines of justice to observe the system exactly as it operates.
You already ran my license.
Okay.
You came back clean. There is no legal reason for this.
I'll be the judge of that. Keep your hands on the trunk.
I am a licensed attorney. I know my rights, and I am telling you, this stop has
That's
no
fine.
basis.
You can tell that to whoever you want. Right now, you're talking to me.
Pull my husband out of his vehicle?
Ma'am, I conducted a routine stop. I'm going to need you to step back.
Officer Brendan Lyle thought he was doing his job when he tapped on the window of a parked Mercedes outside St. Carver Medical Center on a Tuesday evening. He thought the man inside, quiet, well-dressed, unbothered, looked like someone who didn't belong. He ordered him out of the car. He searched him on the pavement in front of nurses, orderlies, and patients. What Officer Lyle never considered, not once, was that the woman who would walk out of those hospital doors 60 seconds later would have the power to dismantle everything he had built. And she already knew exactly what she was looking at. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where you're tuning in from at Bodycam Revealed. And if you believe a man should be able to sit in his own car, in a public parking lot without being treated like a criminal, then hit that like button and subscribe. Because that's exactly what this story is about. St. Carver Medical Center sits at 814 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Newark, New Jersey. A 10-floor building of gray stone and tinted glass that has served the Essex County community for over 4 decades. It is not a quiet place. Even after visiting hours wind down, the entrance on MLK Boulevard stays active. Ambulances pull through the side bay on Orton Parkway. Nurses change shifts in rotating waves. Residents finish rounds. The parking lot directly in front of the main entrance. A wide lit rectangle with painted yellow lines and a security booth near the far end. Runs at about half capacity most evenings by 7 o'clock. There are cameras mounted on the light poles at each corner. There is a city bus stop 20 feet from the front walkway. People move through this lot constantly. Staff, visitors, rideshare drivers, family members waiting on someone finishing a long shift inside. It is, in every sense, a public space. On the evening of Tuesday, October 17th, Cedric Elton pulled his silver Mercedes-Benz GLE into a spot in the second row of that lot at approximately 6:48 p.m. He was early. His wife had texted him 20 minutes before saying she had one more thing to handle before she could leave, and that she would be out by 7. Cedric had been in a meeting in downtown Newark most of the afternoon. A budget review with 2 city contractors at an office on Broad Street. And St. Carver was only 12 minutes away. So he drove over, found a spot, and settled in. He was wearing a charcoal gray blazer over a dark blue dress shirt, no tie, dress slacks, leather shoes. His reading glasses were on, and his phone was in his hand. He was going through emails. Nothing about the way Cedric Elton sat in that parking lot suggested anything other than a man waiting on someone he loved. Cedric was 44 years old. He had grown up in Newark's South Ward, on a block off South Orange Avenue that his mother had refused to leave even when things got hard. He had gone to Weequahic High School, then to Rutgers Newark on a partial academic scholarship, then to Seton Hall University School of Law, where he graduated in the top third of his class. He had spent the first 8 years of his career at a mid-sized firm in Roseland before going into private practice. By the time he was 40, Cedric Elton had built one of the more respected civil rights and municipal law practices in Essex County. His office was on Raymond Boulevard. His name appeared regularly in the pages of the Star Ledger in connection with cases that mattered: wrongful termination suits, housing discrimination complaints, police misconduct litigation. He was not loud about what he did. He did not need to be. His wife, Josephine, had her own story. They had met at a mutual friend's dinner in Montclair nearly 16 years ago, when she was finishing her residency and he was still grinding through the early years at the firm. She had made him laugh 3 times within the first hour of meeting her, and he had decided that evening that he was going to marry her. It took him 8 more months to say it out loud, but he had known. Josephine was now 42, and she had spent the last 6 of those years at St. Carver Medical Center. The last 2 as its executive director. She ran the hospital. Every department head reported to her. Every major operational decision moved through her office. She had a meeting on Thursday with the state health commissioner. She had a speech to give at a fundraising gala in 2 weeks. On this particular Tuesday evening, she was finishing a call with the hospital's legal counsel about a pending compliance matter, which was why she was running a few minutes behind. Cedric did not know any of that detail yet. He just knew she was running a little late, and he was fine with that. He sent 2 emails, checked a court filing deadline on his calendar app, and leaned back in the driver's seat. The lot was calm. A few nurses walked past in scrubs. A man in a visitor badge was loading a sleeping toddler into a minivan 2 rows over. The security booth near the far end had its light on. Officer Raymond Lyle had been with the Newark Police Department for 9 years. He was assigned to the Central District, which covered the MLK Boulevard corridor, and he had been doing a routine patrol pass through the St. Carver lot at around 6:52 p.m. when he noticed the silver Mercedes parked in the second row. He slowed his cruiser. He looked at the vehicle. He looked at the man inside. He sat there for a moment, long enough that a nurse walking to her car noticed the cruiser idling and glanced over. And then he pulled into a spot 2 spaces down and got out. There was nothing unusual about the Mercedes. The plates were New Jersey registered. The car was parked properly within the lines. No hazard lights were on. The engine was running, which was not a violation. The driver was not behaving erratically. He was not drawing attention to himself. He was sitting still, looking at his phone, wearing a blazer. Raymond Lyle walked toward the vehicle anyway. He came up on the driver's side and stood there for a beat before knocking on the glass. Not a soft tap, but the kind of knock that is meant to startle. Cedric looked up. He lowered his window. "Evening," Lyle said. He did not smile. "You waiting on somebody?" Cedric looked at him evenly. "Yes, sir, my wife. She works here." "Works here doing what?" There was a pause. Not a long one, but noticeable. "She's on the administrative staff," Cedric said. Lyle's eyes moved slowly across the interior of the car. Front seat, back seat, center console, then back to Cedric. "How long you been sitting here?" "About 5-6 minutes." "You park here often?" "When I pick her up? Yes." Lyle nodded, but the nod carried nothing cooperative in it. It was the nod of a man filing something away. He looked at the dashboard. He looked at Cedric's phone, still lit in his hand. "What's her name?" "Your wife." Cedric's jaw tightened. Barely, but it was there. "Josephine Elton." "She a nurse?" "No." Lyle waited as though expecting Cedric to fill the silence. Cedric did not. "I'm going to need to see your license and registration," Lyle said. Cedric looked at him for a moment. The lot was going about its business around them. A car pulled out of a spot near the entrance. Someone in scrubs walked past without looking up. The security booth was visible in the distance, its lights still on, its attendant apparently unaware of or uninterested in what was developing in row 2. "Can I ask what this is about?" Cedric said. His voice was calm, measured. The voice of a man who had asked that question in courtrooms and conference rooms and tense hallways before, and who understood exactly what it meant to stay composed when the situation was designed to make you anything but. Lyle's expression did not change. "Routine," he said. "License and registration." Cedric reached for the glove compartment slowly, announced what he was doing before he opened it, and produced the registration card. He handed it over along with his New Jersey driver's license. Lyle took both without looking at them immediately. He stood there holding them. "You got any warrants?" "No," Cedric said. "Been drinking tonight?" "No." "Step out of the vehicle, please." The words landed in the air between them like something dropped from a height. Cedric looked at him. Around them, the lot continued its ordinary evening rhythm. But 2 nurses near the walkway had stopped walking. One of them was watching. A man getting into a pickup truck in the next row had paused with his hand on the door. "I'm waiting for my wife," Cedric said, each word clear and separate. "I haven't violated any law. I'm parked in a legal space. Is there a reason you need me to exit my vehicle?" Lyle's hand moved to his belt, not to anything on it. Just rested there. "Sir," he said, his voice dropping half a register, "I'm not going to ask you again. Step out of the vehicle." Cedric Elton looked at Raymond Lyle for one long, steady moment. Then he removed his reading glasses, folded them, set them on the center console, and reached for the door handle. He stepped out onto the asphalt of the St. Carver Medical Center parking lot in his blazer and dress slacks, hands visible, saying nothing. The door closed behind him. The dome light went off. Somewhere to his left, a phone screen was already facing his direction, its camera already running. Whatever Raymond Lyle thought was going to happen next, he was about to be wrong about all of it. Cedric Elton was standing in a public parking lot. He had done nothing wrong. He had answered every question. He had handed over his license and registration without being asked twice. He had stepped out of his vehicle calmly and without argument. And yet here he was, on the asphalt outside St. Carver Medical Center on MLK Boulevard, with Officer Raymond Lyle circling him like the situation was something other than what it clearly was. A man waiting to pick up his wife. Lyle told him to move to the rear of the vehicle. Cedric walked to the back of the Mercedes without a word and stood there with his hands at his sides, visible, relaxed. He was not aggressive. He was not shaking. He was not raising his voice. Anyone watching. And people were watching. Could see that. What they could also see was that none of that seemed to matter to Raymond Lyle. "You got anything on you I need to know about?" Lyle asked. He was standing close, closer than the conversation required. "No," Cedric said. "Weapons? Anything sharp in your pockets?" "No." Lyle looked him over and then told him to turn around and place his hands on the trunk. Cedric paused for just a moment, not out of resistance, but because the instruction had landed the way those instructions always land when you have done absolutely nothing to earn them. He turned around. He placed his hands flat on the trunk of his own car. What happened next took less than 3 minutes, but those 3 minutes had a way of stretching themselves out in the memory of everyone who witnessed them. Lyle patted him down. He checked his jacket pockets, his pants pockets, his waistband. He found a phone, a wallet, a folded receipt, and a set of car keys. He laid each item on the trunk with the particular kind of deliberateness that was less about procedure and more about making a point. Cedric said nothing. He kept his hands flat and his eyes forward and let the man finish. By this point, there were 7 people in the immediate area who had stopped what they were doing. 2 nurses who had been walking toward the staff entrance on the south side of the lot had not moved in over a minute. A young man in a visitor badge was standing near the hood of a sedan 3 spots over, his phone raised at chest height. An older woman in a heavy coat who had been waiting at the bus stop on MLK Boulevard had turned fully toward the parking lot and was watching without pretending she wasn't. A hospital security guard had appeared near the main entrance doors and was standing just outside them, arms at his sides, not approaching. Nobody intervened. Nobody said anything. The lot was quiet in the particular way that spaces go quiet when something is wrong and everyone present knows it and nobody knows what to do about it. Lyle picked up the wallet from the trunk and opened it. Cedric turned his head. "That's my wallet," he said. His voice was still level, but there was something underneath it now. Not anger exactly, but the particular exhaustion of a man who has had to be calm for too long in a situation that does not deserve his calm. "I can see that," Lyle said, and kept going through it. He looked at the cards. He looked at the cash. He pulled out Cedric's New Jersey State Bar Association card and looked at it for a moment longer than he looked at anything else, then set it back down without comment. He ran the license through dispatch. The response came back clean. No warrants, no flags, no history. Cedric Elton was exactly what he had said he was from the first moment Lyle knocked on his window. A man in a parking lot waiting on his wife. Lyle handed the license back. He did not apologize. He did not explain himself. He stepped back and looked at Cedric with the expression of a man who had not found what he was looking for, but was not quite ready to admit the search was over. "You can turn around," he said. Cedric turned around and faced him. He picked up his wallet and his phone and his keys from the trunk and put them back in his pockets one at a time. He straightened his blazer, then he looked at Raymond Lyle and waited. "You said your wife works here," Lyle said. It was not a new question. It was the same question dressed up to sound like conversation. "Yes," Cedric said. "I've already told you that." "What department?" Cedric looked at him steadily. "Administration." Lyle nodded slowly, the way he had nodded before. That same gesture that carried no agreement in it. He looked over at the Mercedes, then back at Cedric. "We've had some issues in this lot," he said. "Thefts, suspicious activity." Cedric did not respond to that. He did not need to. The statement was not information. It was justification, offered after the fact, dressed up to sound like the stop had always had a reason behind it. Cedric had heard that kind of language before. He had read it in police reports. He had cross-examined officers who used it on the stand. He recognized it for exactly what it was. The young man with the phone 3 spots over had not lowered it. One of the nurses near the staff entrance had taken hers out as well. The older woman at the bus stop was still watching. The security guard near the main doors had not moved, but he was looking in their direction with an expression that suggested he was trying to decide whether he should. Lyle took one more look at the Mercedes. "You're free to get back in your vehicle," he said finally. Cedric did not move immediately. He stood there for just a moment. Not confrontationally, not dramatically, but with the quiet dignity of a man who was not going to rush himself on someone else's timeline after what had just happened to him. Then he walked back to the driver's side, opened the door, and sat down. He put his seatbelt back on. He picked up his reading glasses from the center console and held them in his hand without putting them on. Through the windshield, he could see the main entrance of St. Carver Medical Center, the sliding glass doors, the lights of the lobby visible behind them, the security guard still standing just outside, and above the entrance, mounted on the building's facade, a security camera pointing directly at the parking lot. Lyle had walked back toward his cruiser but had not left. He was standing beside it with his arms crossed, watching the Mercedes, still watching. As though the clean record, the empty search, and the valid registration had not fully convinced him of something he had already decided before he ever knocked on that window. Cedric checked his phone. It was 7:03 p.m. His wife was 6 minutes late. Around him, the people who had stopped to watch were beginning to move again. Slowly, carefully, the way people move when a tense situation has technically ended, but the air has not fully cleared. The nurse with her phone out lowered it, but did not put it away. The young man in the visitor badge was still standing where he had been standing, still watching Lyle's cruiser. Then the sliding doors opened. The sliding doors opened and Josephine Elton walked out. She was not rushing. She never rushed. That was one of the first things people noticed about her. The way she moved through a space like the space already belonged to her, not out of arrogance, but out of the kind of quiet authority that takes years to build and cannot be faked. She was in a tailored navy blazer over a white blouse, her hospital ID clipped to her lapel, a leather portfolio tucked under her left arm. She had her phone in her hand and she was finishing a thought, typing something or ending a message. And she pushed through the doors without looking up. Then she looked up. She saw the Mercedes first. Then she saw Cedric standing outside it, blazer slightly disturbed, glasses in his hand instead of on his face. Then she saw Raymond Lyle leaning against his cruiser with his arms crossed. She took in the whole picture in about 2 seconds, the way someone does when they have spent enough years in leadership to read a room or a parking lot, without needing it explained to them. Her pace did not slow. It did not speed up. She walked directly toward Cedric with the same stride she used walking into board meetings, and when she reached him, she put her hand on his arm briefly. Just a touch, just enough, and looked at his face. He looked back at her. Neither of them said anything for a moment. She didn't need him to explain. She could see it. The items had been placed back in his pockets, but she could tell they had been removed. She could tell by the way he was holding himself. Composed, but carrying something that had been done to him in the last 15 minutes. She turned and looked at Raymond Lyle. Lyle had uncrossed his arms. He was standing up straighter now, the way people do when they suddenly feel looked at. Josephine walked toward him at the same unhurried pace, and she stopped 3 feet in front of him. She looked at his badge. She looked at his face. Then she spoke. "Did you remove my husband from his vehicle?" Lyle opened his mouth. "Ma'am, there was a routine." "Did you search him?" The question was not loud. It did not need to be. It landed in the space between them like something solid. Lyle paused. Around them, the lot had gone still again. The nurse who had started walking had stopped. The young man with the phone had raised it back up. The security guard near the entrance had taken 3 steps forward without seeming to realize he had done it. "I conducted a brief." "In this parking lot," Josephine said. "In front of this building." Lyle straightened further. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to—" "My name," she said, "is Dr. Josephine Elton. I am the executive director of this hospital." She let that sit for exactly 1 second. "This parking lot is on hospital property. Those cameras," she said, and she did not point, did not gesture, just held his gaze, "have been recording since before you pulled in." Raymond Lyle's expression did not collapse. It did something worse. It froze. The particular stillness of a man who has just understood all at once the full distance between where he thought he was standing and where he was actually standing. Josephine was not finished. "My husband is an attorney. He has been parked in this lot legally, in a marked space, committing no violation of any law. You pulled him out of his vehicle, searched his person, and went through his wallet." She said each item with the flat precision of someone reading from a list. "And your dispatch already told you he had nothing on record. So you had all of that information and you kept him standing out here anyway." Lyle said nothing. One of the nurses had her hand over her mouth. The young man with the phone had taken 2 steps closer. The security guard was now standing openly in the lot, no longer pretending to be near the entrance for any other reason. Josephine looked at Lyle's badge one more time, long enough to make clear she was reading the number on it, not just looking at it. Then she turned away from him. Not dramatically, not with any performance in it, and walked back to Cedric. She was done with Raymond Lyle. The way she turned her back on him said everything that a longer speech would have diminished. She reached Cedric and stood beside him. He had not moved from where she left him. He was watching her with an expression that was equal parts pride and something heavier, the particular weight of a man who had held himself together through something he should never have been put through, and who was only now with his wife beside him, allowing himself to feel the full size of it. "You okay?" she said quietly. "I'm okay," he said, and then after a moment, he went through my wallet. Josephine nodded once. She pulled out her phone. She made a call right there in the parking lot, not stepping away, not lowering her voice. The first call was to the hospital's head of security. The second call, made before she had even finished walking to the passenger side of the Mercedes, was to their attorney. Behind them, Raymond Lyle had not moved from beside his cruiser. He was standing in the same spot, in the same lot, under the same camera lights, but nothing about his position felt the same as it had 20 minutes ago. The phones that had recorded him were still in the hands of the people holding them. The footage already existed. It was already real. And every second he continued standing there, it was only getting longer. He had stopped a man for sitting in a parking lot. He had searched him and found nothing. And the woman who had just looked him in the eye without raising her voice ran the building behind him. There was no version of the next few days that was going to be easy for Raymond Lyle. Not one. The footage was online before Cedric and Josephine had even made it home. The young man with the phone, a 23-year-old nursing student named Derek Osei, who had been visiting his grandmother on the 4th floor, had posted the video to his social media accounts at 7:11 p.m., less than 10 minutes after Josephine walked back to the Mercedes. He had captured 3 minutes and 40 seconds of the encounter. It showed Cedric standing at the rear of his own vehicle with his hands on the trunk. It showed Lyle going through his wallet. It showed Josephine's arrival, her exchange with Lyle, and the moment she turned her back on him. The clip had no caption except the address, 814 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Newark, New Jersey. And within 2 hours, it had been shared over 4,000 times. By midnight, it was on 3 local news websites. By 6 the following morning, it was on the front page of the Star-Ledger's digital edition. By noon on Wednesday, every major news outlet covering the New Jersey and New York metro area had picked it up. The Newark Police Department released a statement at 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday. It was 11 sentences long. It said the department was aware of the video, that the incident was under review, and that the department took all allegations of misconduct seriously. It did not name Officer Raymond Lyle. It did not acknowledge that the stop had been without legal basis. It used the word review 4 times in 11 sentences, which told most people who read it exactly how seriously the department intended to take it, at least in that first moment, before the pressure had fully arrived. The pressure arrived by Thursday. St. Carver Medical Center released its own statement Wednesday evening, and it was a different kind of document entirely. It was direct. It named Josephine Elton by title. It confirmed that Cedric Elton had been parked legally on hospital-adjacent property while waiting to pick up his wife, that he had been subjected to a search that yielded nothing because there was nothing to find, and that the hospital's own camera system had captured the full encounter from multiple angles. The statement closed by saying that the hospital had already been in contact with legal counsel and intended to cooperate fully with any investigation. Josephine had written most of it herself. By Thursday morning, 3 members of the Essex County Freeholder Board had called for an independent review. A state assemblywoman who represented the district that included MLK Boulevard issued a statement of her own calling the stop a textbook example of racial profiling. The Newark branch of the NAACP held a brief press conference outside St. Carver at noon, standing in the same parking lot where it had happened, in front of the same cameras that had recorded it. Cedric stood at a podium that same afternoon beside his attorney, a woman named Patricia Hale from a civil rights firm in Trenton that he had referred cases to for years and now found himself needing in a different way. He spoke for 4 minutes. He did not raise his voice. He said that he had been stopped, questioned, ordered out of his vehicle, and searched without cause, and that the only reason it had happened was because of what he looked like sitting in that parking lot. He said he had complied fully because he understood the cost of not complying, and that no person should have to make that calculation in a public parking lot outside a hospital while waiting for their spouse. He said he was filing a formal civil rights complaint with the New Jersey Attorney General's office and that a federal civil rights lawsuit was being prepared. Then he stepped back from the podium and let Patricia Hale take over. Officer Raymond Lyle was placed on administrative desk duty Friday morning, pending the outcome of the internal affairs investigation. His department issued body camera. It emerged during the initial review, had not been activated during the stop. Departmental policy required officers to activate body cameras at the initiation of any civilian contact. Lyle had not done that. That single fact added a separate layer to the internal investigation, one that carried its own potential disciplinary consequences independent of the stop itself. The civil rights complaint was filed the following Monday. The federal lawsuit followed 2 weeks later. It named Raymond Lyle individually. It named the city of Newark. It cited the Fourth Amendment. It cited established case law on pretextual stops and racially motivated policing. Cedric had read every case cited in that complaint before Patricia filed it. He had lived inside that body of law for 20 years. He understood, with a precision that most people never have to develop, exactly what had been done to him and exactly what it was worth in a federal courtroom. The internal affairs investigation concluded 11 weeks later. Lyle was found to have conducted a stop without reasonable suspicion and to have violated departmental body camera policy. He was suspended without pay for 30 days. The department announced the findings in a brief statement that again used the word review more than any other word. The federal lawsuit was still pending. Patricia Hale had told Cedric it could take 2 years. He told her he had the time. Josephine went back to work the morning after it happened. She had a compliance meeting and a department head review and a call with the state health commissioner that she had been preparing for all week. She did all of it, but before her first meeting, she walked through the parking lot on her way in, and she stood for a moment in the second row, in the spot where Cedric's Mercedes had been, and she looked at the camera mounted on the light pole at the corner of the lot. It had seen everything, and so had everyone else. If this story made you feel something, don't let it stop here. Share this video because the stories that travel the furthest are the ones that matter the most. Every share puts this in front of someone who needs to see it. We'll keep telling these stories as long as you keep watching. This is Bodycam Revealed, and we are not done.
Welcome. Our objective is clear: to pursue the truth and hold established power to account. We follow the paper trail because the official records never lie. Thank you for watching and seeking the facts with us.